So part two of the ramblings of a fool and idiot. It's 4:05 in the morning, West Coast time. It's the 5th of September, 2024. The Weaver Giants here, Roseman, California. Blathering up a storm in the previous video and just got me up to this particular point. I was talking about Rancho Palos Verdes and geology and everything else going on these days. And one of the stories I knew that people are going to be having a problem in the peninsula is insurance companies are hauling ass out of the state of California when it comes down for disaster. We've had too many disasters happening that have been depleting their funds, and therefore, in order to save their companies and their financial ass, they're pulling out left and right. Which means no coverage for earthquakes, no coverage for fires. Why? Because it's fiscally irresponsible. Because they can't afford the damn payments. If we have any houses damaged by geologic nature, they're like, well, that's on you now, ain't it? So basically, Rancho Palos Verdes, some of those people out there who actually have homes damaged because of a massive slide, they're not going to have their claims processed. I mean, they'll have them looked at, but the problem is they're going to be rejected because the insurance companies won't cover an act of God like this. It's an act of geology, it's an act of science. But the houses won't be covered, and neither will the people's livelihood, unfortunately. I have to be the bearer of bad news on this one because it sucks. We've had insurance companies out there pulling out from people who've actually had homes destroyed by fire, either by human nature or by nature himself, or so. Itself. You know what I mean. By human nature, it's either by accident or deliberation. And by nature, it would be like I don't know, maybe a lightning or something like that striking, creating a forest fire to a point where it destroys communities left and right. And the communities who put in applications actually paid money into insurance company to protect them from things like this so they can rebuild again, they're getting screwed over in this one. It's like hearing the stories I'm getting from back east, including the Florida Panhandle and a few other coastline areas from the Gulf of Mexico to the Atlantic. How much insurance do they have for hurricane, for tornado, for wind, for water damage? Anything specific? Do they actually have coverage in order to rebuild? Out here, we're a geologic nightmare. We're an ecological and an environmental nightmare out here in California. Not to mention up and down the West Coast. We have geologic activity. Not as much, but it's still there. And when it does happen, it creates. Seeing the earthquakes happening on the other side of the water, they have better coverage than we do. They can at least kind of rebuild everything if they have to. They got government to afford that shit if they had to. We're out here, we're dealing with private entity companies. We're dealing with corporations that want to save and salvage their ass. They want the customers, but they want the money from the customers, but they're not willing to pay the money for the customers because it'll bankrupt their ass. Their existence is supposed to be gathering money from people, the reality of it. So they make themselves rich by promising that they'll be covering certain little aspects, but then micromanage the damn thing down. And if it doesn't fit in those little micromanaged areas, say goodbye to it. You paid money into a worthless policy. That's what I have to say. Keep re-examining a damn policy. Go over it with your insurance brokers. If this isn't exactly line per line what you're supposed to be going through and explicitly said so what you're going to be covered, you're screwed, basically. It also applies to medical insurance. You got to go over your coverage of explanation of benefits entirely with your agents. I mean, line per line. You even have to contact the insurance companies line per line. See what you're going to be covered for the medical. Because if you're not covered for the medical, you're screwed. That's basically how I say it. I could be saying a shout out to a guy back east out in Connecticut. Doesn't have that much problems, except he seems to be looking for more problems and more issues these days. I'm seeing too many of them online right now. I'm hearing too many from the neighbors these days. Out here in Roseman, California, Yeah, people are having conniption fits because, yes, putting politics into nature, they're Trumplicants. Most of them are Trumplicants. And they got road warriors on the, actually, keyboard warriors out there in social media. Just enough to keep the anger, hatred, and everything else going on. And they don't care if there's going to be any truth happening or biting them in the ass on this one. They don't care. They want to listen to the lie. No matter how many times you keep trying to throw the truth at them. I mean, yes, this one bit they got of truth I kept putting back in play. Arlington. There's back and forth on social media talking about this thing left and right. And it's like, guys, get it together. Realize what the fuck's going on. There was a law made back in the 20s or 30s called the Hatch Act on this one. I ought to be putting this stuff back on my descriptions of what I'm looking at regarding a situation because it's important, but nobody wants to listen to it. So, and this is regarding federal employees and federal property that got violated. There is information out there on the internet, including a few government places that people think, no, we can't do that one. How dare you? Okay, try this one, history.com. Will that help you out? Not that the government system, but just history.com. When I get my video set up, I'll throw this one out there. History.com, where we have what is the Hatch Act and why was it established in 1939. Should we go into it a little bit here? I want a page on this one. I want a PDF. I want site locations on this thing because it's cool. Okay, so this article was published back in September 22nd of 2020 on this one. Got a nice picture of FDR in that one. First paragraph, Hatch Act was signed into law 1939 to keep federal employees from engaging in political activities while they're on the job. It was also designed to ensure federal employees don't face political pressures as they perform their work. While numerous federal employees have been cited with violating the act over the years, high-ranking political appointees have rarely faced any repercussions. Gee, I wonder why that was. Act was initially passed in reaction to a scandal. Ooh. During the administration of Franklin D. Roosevelt, sponsored by and named after New Mexico Senator Carl A. Hatch, a Democrat nicknamed Cowboy Carl. The legislation defines political activity as, quote, any activity directed towards the success or failure of a political party, candidate for a partisan political office, or partisan political group. Violations of the Hatch Act carry serious penalties which may result in disciplinary action or removal from federal employment. How does this apply to the visit in Arlington? I don't know how it originally initiated at this point, but there were stories going around that a family wanted to celebrate the fallen, and the fallen was from the Afghanistan U.S. troop uh, deployments. They were getting removed. Now, there's long stories, and there's other stories for conspiracy to be added into this thing, but basically because the U.S. left Afghanistan in the way they had, there was a suicide bomb situation happening, and it killed U.S. service people. Not to mention other Afghanis. And those bodies were taken over to Arlington for burial. There's a certain plot line, I think it's number 30, that covers the Iraq and Afghanistan war. And those who have fallen get to be buried there. So the family was coming out a few years after the removal to memorialize their fallen by maybe doing a small thing. But a small service would have been like They go over there, hang around a tombstone, memorialize it for a while, and then leave. Make sure it's nice, quiet, and somber and solemn, and not disturbing anybody. No, not the situation over here, because this family decided they wanted political figures about this one. They want to turn it political. That's motivation. I had an argument with a pastor on this one here. That's politics. According to the stories, they're trying to contact both parties to pay tribute to their fallen. That would have been nice, but we're talking about violations here. The family didn't get it, but the Trump party did. And they didn't care. They were going to get political candy out of this one. They were going to get street creds. And that goes against the Hatch Act. Especially when you have federal employees maintaining a memorial, a cemetery, a resting place for the dead, and a place for reflection for the living. And they're trying to tell the people they can't do what they were going to do. Bring in a bunch of press, their own press gang, to disturb everybody, including making a big ceremony out of the damn thing. For political gain, especially when they're getting costed by Trump's team. The Army got wind of this one, and they're pissed off. Only after when the situation happened, and only after when the employee got accosted, pushed around, and got terrified by not talking about it. But it was talked about because the veteran groups and the military and other people are still talking about it to this day, and they're not going to let it down either. I hope not. The independents are feeding on this thing like crazy, just to make sure the story keeps alive and just gives Trump a bad name. Good, because he deserved it anyway. He said yes to the family, but he did it because he wanted to get street creds. Harris and Walz, they couldn't. There's no way in hell they're going to be violating the federal law on this one. This was made back in 1939. It had never been repealed. So I suppose the Republican Party wants to get that repealed because they want to keep political street cred wherever they can get it, including at a national gravesite. So they're willing to break the law, break Constitution, break everything just to get their way. That's my political viewpoints here. They brought in other political figures. Governor of the state coming in. Maybe a couple other people. Bringing strangers along, too. That they didn't want to be in the photographs, but they got into the photographs. But the governor who was with Trump at the time, he was getting his street cred. He was getting his political candy. And ruining the Hatch Act. A governor. We're talking about high officials. That's one of them. And so is Trump. But if it was anybody else, they'd go after and arrest a lot of credit. But high officials? Shit. Not doing damn shit on this one, except we'll have to keep bringing up the story and keep doing the political commentary all the damn time. I have to because I owe it to the veterans, both above and below. I owe it to my brother. He wasn't buried over there. Wish he was. But if he was, I know he'd be talking to me from the grave saying, John, get this bastard. Okay, fine. But I got issues with that. Now, people think because I am a Democrat, I'm an actual socialist. No, I'm what they call libturd/libtard. Do I believe in socialism? Socialist democratic? Not to a point. I'm also capitalist, but I have to understand both sides of the point and realize that there's more sides to the point than people talk about. I talk about socialism because they think government's going to be paying everything. No, it comes out of your own damn pocket. Give me a break. You want to see socialism? Look at your own damn community. I bring this up from time to time, and I'll still bring it up. What is your company needing at this? Try that again. What does your community need that they need your tax money to do? Ask yourself that. You going to be willing to do without it? Or is it necessary? Is it a necessity? So now you're paying employees to do your necessity. It's not free. You're paying them to do a job. That's not socialism. What they consider socialism is when the government starts giving away free programs, free money. Not really. Because money's still coming out of my damn pocket and your pocket and everyone else's pocket for the damn shit. They don't want the rich to pay for everything. Why happens if the rich can't pay for everything? But they say the 1% of the wealth of the country is in the hands of the rich. Yeah. Good luck in trying to get it out of them. Socialist Democrats, like one particular elderly gentleman, have been trying to get the rich taxed like crazy. He wants the elite to pay. The elite's not going to pay. Everything else has to come from underneath paying for it. And the elite keep getting the cream. Of course, we have the other countries laughing and screaming their heads off at this point over here, saying, wait, you like capitalism so much, it's got to be happening in your country. And if it is, guess what, boys and girls? They'll start talking to me about it because they're all fucking hypocrites. See what happened in other countries when they have autocratic societies or autocratic governments happening. But they still want the capitalism. Oh boy. We had this damn thing created, and we got things screwed up left and right. We have empires that lasted for maybe a few decades to centuries in our life, in our human history. We had different rulers coming in and left and right, promising they're going to be making changes, and when they do, the other guy comes in, screws things up left and right. So we got to have a bloody war one way or another. Human history. You get dynasties out there to show how great and mighty that their ruler is and how well their own society is, and then shows up they're just as screwed up like everybody else. When we give consent to govern in whatever form of government, we own it. We own it. And they own our ass. If not, it'd be anarchy. And anarchy would be an anarchist dream because they don't follow rules, regulations, laws, or anything else like that governing human behavior. They do whatever they like and pillage, plunder, pilfer, and everything else. Something like a pirate. That's your anarchist for you. Wants chaos, confusion, and deal with it because they're all screwed up in the heads. When you're talking about a society built like that, well, then we're not a society. We're a group of gangs roving around trying to survive. That's what we are. Ruled by fear and intimidation. Guess what? We got that going on right now. People blame the current administration in the United States government, who's running for re-election right now, trying to show how strong they are and better they are from the previous administration. And we got the people trying to continue the previous administration because they want their empire. They want their political empire. Nothing's going to solve it. No matter how many times their beloved leader keeps insulting the living crap out of people, that they're still going to be willing to want it because they want power. They want their ego fed. Yeah, guess what? We're having that happen. We have bleeding heart liberals out there. They're too far left. How dare they? They're not conservative righteous. They're not conservative. They're not believing in God. They're not believing in one religion. How dare they? Oh my God, I'm looking at Puritans all over the fucking again. Bad enough we got the Baptists doing this shit. At least there are certain isolated groups that still call themselves Baptists out there who still want that control, that fear and terrorism because it juices them up, gives them the street cred. And then we have other people trying to go after them left and right. Of course, we have a few isolated groups saying, Why can't we all get along? Oh no, we need to do skull thumping at this point. We need to have bludgeon. We need bloody. We need this thing and that thing. And what scares the hell out of me when I'm listening to rhetoric like this, we get isolated nut jobs out there doing the jobs, and it scares the hell out of people left and right, which creates a political firestorm, which continues this weird ass cycle going on. Georgia was a tragedy. A 14-year-old comes in with a gun and starts killing people left and right. Two teachers and two students, maybe wounding a few others. Scaring the hell out of people, but they finally got the kid. They didn't kill him. They finally captured his ass. So now they're going to try to throw a shrink or two, trying to figure out what the hell's going on with this Major Meatball here. Was he coming from out of school? Was he in that school? Was he there for a purpose? Scaring the hell out of people left and right because they see this shit happening all the fucking time. I'm not apologizing for the language. I'm letting it loose. Was it 4 or 5 decades we've been fighting with this shit? I hadn't heard anything about this when I was in high school back in the 80s. Back in the 90s, you thought it was an isolated situation when you actually had people popping off their heads. I think back in the 80s also, we actually had the thing called going postal. That was a postal worker freaking out, I guess, his employees and anybody else just having a conniption fit. It just started to go on a wig out. Body count started increasing on that one. And then it's like this chain reaction with humanity. When you hear it in the office going postal, you see tensions rising. You feel the tension in the air rising. You're wondering whether your coworker next to you is going to go absolutely ape at this point because he can't stand to work, or she can't stand to work. Mostly it's the guys are freaking, that's it, I gotta go crazy, let me do something here, stupid. Yeah. No stress, no pressure, nobody listening to you, so yeah, let's do it. That movie, Falling Down, Michael Douglas back in the 80s on that one. Guy can't stand the change that's happening. He just can't. He's got things he's got to do, and he's trying to get them accomplished, and it makes him alienated from his family, including the daughter that he loves. He wants to get to this particular place and celebrate this one thing, but apparently things are going so screwy on that one. I never did see the movie. I was just reading captions online about this one. He was supposed to be the villain, or actually the anti-hero. However you want to look at this poor sap. And he couldn't deal with life. He couldn't deal with life as it is. He was so used to a pattern that once that pattern was actually recognized, and he couldn't deal with it any longer. He went nuts. Hurting people left and right. That's what we're having right now. We have people who want things the way their quote-unquote were as they remembered them as kids. Problem is, that was a long time ago. They read about things in the paper or in the books, and they felt like, we need to get back to that simple time. It sounded so simple. Are you kidding me, fucker? You didn't realize to read history, did you? Didn't bother to understand history, did you? And yeah, sometimes history is written by the victors of the spoils, but also written by other witnesses of what's been happening to correspond with everything else. That's why historians are going through every piece of data that they possibly get their hands on. Because sometimes history needs to be revised, but if it is revised, is it correct? Is it correct? Is it the correct information? I keep telling people, history, history, history. I never was a history buff all that much. But certain aspects, I was trying to keep history alive. Now, as I got older and lived through a lot of history myself, I keep telling the people, older and younger, history, history, history. You don't learn from it, you repeat the damn shit. Basic. That's how it's demonstrated. But people don't want to think about that damn shit, so stupid. They're dumber than dog shit. No, it's not dumber. It's ignorant. It's ignorance. I don't know everything in human history. All I know is I see patterns left and right. I hear a few things left and right. I learn a lot. what I can. Observations or reading books left and right, watching the tubes, and not just YouTube either. Living through history. Give me a little bit of perspective and give me a little bit of knowledge of what's going on. I know everybody else has got their own viewpoints of what history and life is supposed to be like. We've all had our childhood memories of what life was supposed to be like. But that was like a childhood's viewpoint. We get older, we get more divided. We get into subsections. We get into a specific criteria in our head, how things are supposed to be, and we can't deal with what's going on around us. Some of us actually go crazy when we're doing the falling down routine. We're displaying the character of Michael Douglas all over again in that movie. And we're doing it on a constant basis. Conservatives and Democrats and whoever, they're still doing it. They don't get it. They don't want to see it. I'm not a guru. I'm just saying the shit I'm seeing right now and observing all the damn time. I'm not saying that you're going to have to see it. You, and then have to, because I said so. I know better than everyone else out there. I know better than any other asshole out there. Like I know better what's going on. Shit, give me a fucking break on that shit. Give me a break. We got countries trying to take over, trying to control their environments as much as possible so we don't have any kind of cross contaminations happening from other tourist industries who are bringing their stuff in, pissing off people left and right. I'm not repeating that word salad either. I'm seeing what I'm observing and I'm hearing it. And I'm like, okay, fine. Pass along that little word of wisdom. And sometimes the things that we take for granted and we enjoy like crazy are changing too much that we can't enjoy it too much. And if we can, sometimes that joy is taken away from us one way or another. Of course, we try to find scapegoats. That's not going to change shit. We either adapt or we don't. And if we don't, well, we're going to get ground up. So we have to adapt. We have to go with the flow. But sometimes the flow that we see isn't the flow we like. So we have to be the cog, we have to be the cog that stops in all this damn machinery, grind it to a halt, piss people off left and right. But sometimes that kind of damage is more permanent than we realize. Well, we're going to get message across, yeah, but with the kind of damage we're doing to the machines that we're working and living under. Maybe I should have found that movie somewhere online because if it is, I'd like to see that damn thing. I like to see I want to see the stress of what this artist was trying to tell us that we're seeing up all the way through this point and even earlier on. Some people think I'm wise. I'm not wise. I'm just saying the shit I see. I'm repeating it like a damn echo box. But I have to make sure the stuff I'm saying is accurate enough. And if I'm going to change things, I'm going to change things. If I'm going to redraft it, I'll redraft the damn thing. It's like working on an essay. You just don't shove the first draft in. You have to have it polished. And so I have to get to work today. Get it finished before midnight. And pray to God it works. But then again, I have to make sure that the information is accurate and worded correctly so I can get the damn thing in there in order to have it working. So what happens when you're working online and you're going through colleges like this? Make sure that you got your shit done. If not, you're not going to pass. Word of advice. But that being said, me being an old fart, I still need a little bit more rest. My back was going to kill me for this shit. So that I will tell and announce, and I'll load things up in a drive. Transfer it over to the computer, send it out. I'm trying to avoid the energy costs right now. They're draining me dry. Later, guys.